Hello everyone. Let's begin with today's session. Today we are going to try to attempt to do reading comprehension questions. Now I have divided the lectures in three categories depending upon the level of their difficulty. This is LOD1, that is level of difficulty 1. Here we are going to solve two passages. In the first one, we are going to read the passage first and then we will go and solve the questions. And in the second passage, we are going to read the questions first and then the passage, and then we will try attempting the questions. So without further ado, let's begin with the passages. So passage 1. This is the passage 1. So let's read it. One of the most successful commercial products ever launched is said to have come about as a result of a mistake. In 1869, Jacob's Pharmacy in Atlanta, Georgia was selling a nerve tonic known as French wine cola, ideal nerve tonic. By accidentally adding fizzy water instead of still water to the recipe, a pharmacist called John S. Pemberton invented what has today become the most popular soft drink in the world, Coca-Cola, along with its closest rival, Pepsi, which appeared on the market 3 years later. Coke has enjoyed phenomenal success worldwide, particularly in the past 50 years. Indeed, old Coke bottles and limited edition cans can often fetch considerable sums from the collectors, and there are even stores which deal exclusively in Coke products and memorabilia. What could possibly account for the amazing success of Coca-Cola? How has this combination of carbonated water, sugar, and acid and flavorings come to symbolize the American way of life for most of the world? After all, even the manufacturers could hardly describe Coke as a healthy product since it contains a relatively high amounts of sugar. Admittedly not the case with the Diet Coke, which contains what? Artificial sweeteners instead of sugar, and phosphoric acid, both of which are known to damage the teeth. One explanation may be found in the name. The original recipe included a flavoring form, the coca plant, and probably included small amounts of cocaine, an additive substance, but since the early part of the century, all traces of cocaine have been removed. However, Coke, like all cola drinks, also include a flavoring form from the cola tree. Cola extract contains caffeine, which is a stimulant, and the Coca-Cola company adds extra caffeine for good measure. While caffeine is not thought to be an additive substance in itself, there is considerable evidence that over a period of time, the consumption of caffeine has to be increased in order for its stimulating effect to be maintained, and so sales of Coke perhaps benefit as a result. A more likely reason for the enduring popularity of Coke may, however, be found in the company's enviable marketing strategies. Over the years, it has come up with some of the most memorable commercials, tunes, slogans, sponsorships in the world of advertising, variously emphasizing international harmony, youthfulness, and a carefree lifestyle. Few other companies, arguably including Pepsi, have been able to match such marketing ploys so consistently or effectively. As suggested earlier, the influence of American culture are evident just about everywhere, and Coca-Cola has somehow come to represent a vision of the United States that much of the rest of the world dreams about and aspires to. Perhaps drinking Coke brings people that little bit closer to the dream. So here, we have actually read the passage. Now what we are going to do is, we are going to do the questions. The thing is that if you people weren't able to understand the passage, just pause the video and read it and just mark all the important things which you feel are important. And then go to the question part, read the questions and solve the questions. Alright? So this is one way of doing the passage. The other way of doing the passage is what I'm going to explain in passage number 2. So we have read this passage which is about Coca-Cola. So let's go and do the questions. So question number 1. According to the paragraph, cans can often fetch considerable sums means the same as Coke is quite expensive in some parts of the world. Coke. Collectors consider carefully how much they are paying for a can of Coke. Old Coke cans have a lot of value. Some collectors will only drink Coke in exclusive stores. Certain Coke cans are worth a lot of money as collectible items. So obviously the answer seems E. Second question. Now, how do I know that answer is E? The thing is that when I was reading the passage, I was carefully paying attention to each and every word which was given in the passage. And I was underlining the important things. I was so drowned in the passage that when I'm reading the questions, I instantly know that what the answer is going to be. This is exactly you need to read a passage. Alright, you have to be so much into the passage so that you do not waste your time reading that passage again and again because you didn't understand it the first time. Alright, so question number 2. According to the paragraph, the author uses for good measure to emphasize the fact that there is a lot of caffeine in Coke. The amount of caffeine in Coke is carefully measured. The extra caffeine improves the taste of Coke. The extra caffeine balances the amount found naturally in coca extract. And the extra caffeine is healthy for drinkers of Coke. Now, according to the paragraph, for good measure was for what? It was for a lot of caffeine in the Coke. Right? Question number 3. According to paragraph, Coke has enjoyed phenomenal success. Suggests that the author thinks that the success of Coke is very strange, believes that the success of Coke has been impressive, thinks that the success of Coke is beyond explanation, rather disapproves the success of Coke, considers the success of Coke to be undeserved. So obviously he believes that the success of Coke has been impressive. Alright, question number 4 says, describing Coke's marketing strategies as enviable in the paragraph, the author means that the strategies are based on envy. Coke's marketing staff is encouraged to be envious of each other's ideas. People are persuaded to buy Coke because they are envious of others. Rivals are envious of Coke company's successful methods of marketing. Coke's marketing strategies are enviable. So obviously the answer has to be D, that rivals are envious of the Coke's company's successful methods of marketing, because we just read that they have wonderful marketing strategies. Next question is, it can be inferred from the last sentence of the passage that most people would like to live in America. Many people wish for a lifestyle like they imagine most Americans have. Drinking Coke reminds a lot of people of visiting America. Living in the United States is a bit like living in a dream. Drinking Coke is a part of American dream. So obviously the answer seems B. Many people wish for a lifestyle like they imagine most Americans have. The last question. According to the paragraph, all of the following are not true except cocaine and caffeine are additive substances. At least one of the ingredients of Coke is additive. The stimulating effect of caffeine is reduced over time unless consumption of it is increased. The Coca-Cola company has gradually increased the amount of caffeine it puts in Coke. All of the above are not true. So obviously the answer seems C. The stimulating effect of caffeine is reduced over time unless the consumption is increased. Alright. So with this, we reach the end of paragraph 1. And now what we are going to do is we are going to actually read passage 2. But before reading passage 2, we are going to read the questions of passage 2 so that we have an idea before actually reading the passage that what that passage is about. And then while reading the passage, I can underline all the important points and then I can go back and mark all the answers in my questions. So the questions goes like this. According to the passage, the author implies what? Self-criticism has gone too far. Evaluating criteria are inappropriate nowadays. Communication is a more comprehensive category than language skills. This column does not meet the demanding evaluating criteria of today. There is a dumbing down of American education. Now the thing is that after reading first question, I can make a guess that this passage might be related to self-esteem, communication, or maybe education, those soft skills which are there. Let's see if it's true or not. So according to the author, all of the following are true except what? Subjects are no longer taught seriously. Academic standards in school nowadays are no longer high enough. Kids nowadays are encouraged to be self-critical. The use of language has changed for the worse. None of these. So after reading question 2, I can little bit say that alright, maybe the passage would be about education. Third question. The style of the author can be best described as academic, critical, analytical, comparative, and jovial. Okay. Next, the attitude of the author can be best described as progressive, reactionary, liberal, tolerant, or critical. Question number 5. How would you describe the author's attitude towards current learning strategies? Distanced, admiring, ironical, objective, reviling. According to the passage, the author's intention is to get us what? Confirm current trends, rethink educational strategies, think about what constitutes communication, and reassure parents, define language teaching. So after reading all these questions, I can make a guess that maybe the passage would be about education system, and because they were talking about America, so maybe the education system in America. So let's read the passage and find out what exactly the passage is all about. Now, because we have read the questions before reading the passage, we have a fair idea of what the questions demand from us. So while reading the passage, we will keep an eye on the important lines which can actually give us the answer to the questions which we are supposed to answer. So let's go and read the passage first. Okay. So this is the passage. It says, ask American school child what he or she is learning in school these days, and you might even get a reply, provided you ask it in Spanish. But don't bother. Here's the answer. Americans nowadays are not learning any of the things that we learned in our days, like reading and writing. Apparently, these are considered fusty old subjects invented by white males to oppress women and minorities. What are they learning? In a Vermont college town, I found the answer sitting in a toy store book rack next to a typical kid's book like Heather has two mommies and Daddy is dysfunctional. It's a teacher's guide called Happy to Be Me. Subtitled Building Self-Esteem. Self-esteem, as it turns out, is a big subject in American classrooms. Many American schools see building it as important as teaching reading and writing. They call it whole language teaching. Borrowing terminology from the granola people to compete in the education marketplace. No one ever spent a moment building my self-esteem when I was in school. In fact, from the day I first stepped inside a classroom, my self-esteem was one big demolition site. All that mattered was the subject, be it geography, history, or mathematics. I was praised when I remembered that near, fit, friendly, pleasing, like, and their opposites took the dative case in Latin. I was reviled when I forgot what a cosine was good for. Generally, I lived my school years beneath a torrent of castigation so consistent I eventually ceased to hear it, as people who live near the sea eventually stop hearing the waves. Schools have changed, reviling it out for one thing. More importantly, subjects have changed. Whereas I learned English, modern kids learn something called language skills. Whereas I learned writing, modern kids learn something called communication. Communication, the book tells us, is 7% words, 23% facial expressions, 20% tone of voice, and 50% of your body language. So this column with its carefully chosen words would earn me at cost a grade of 7%. That is, if the school even gave out something as oppressive and demanding as grades. The result is that in place of English classes, American children are getting a course on how to win friends and influence people. Consider the new attitude towards journal writing. I remember one high school English class when we were required to keep a journal. The idea was to emulate those great writers who confined in diaries, searching their souls and owning their critical thinking on paper. Happy to Be Me states that journals are a great way for students to get in touch with their feelings. Tell students they can write one sentence or a whole page. Reassure them that no one, not even you, will read what they write. After the unit, hopefully all students will be feeling good about themselves and will want to share some of their entries with the class. There was a time when no self-respecting book for English teachers would use great or hopefully that way. Moreover, back then, the purpose of English course, an antique term for unit, was not to help students feel good about themselves, which is good because all of that reviling didn't make me feel particularly good about anything. So see, we have completed reading the passage, and now we know that this passage is about what? It's about self-esteem, it's about education, it's about the students in America nowadays, it's about communication, it's about what the students are learning in the schools instead of reading or writing in the old way, in the old manner particularly, in which their parents might have learned. So let's again read the questions and try solving them now. So, the first question was, according to the passage, the author implies that self-criticism has gone too far, evaluating criteria are inappropriate nowadays, communication is a more comprehensive category than language skills. This column does not meet the demanding evaluating criteria of today. There is a dumbing down of American education. So according to the passage, the correct answer is B, that is evaluating criteria are inappropriate nowadays. Question number 2. According to the author, all of the following are true except subjects are no longer taught seriously, academic standards in school nowadays are no longer high enough, kids nowadays are encouraged to be self-critical, the use of language has changed for the worse, and none of these. So the answer is C, that kids nowadays are encouraged to be what? Self-critical. Question 3. The style of the author can be best described as what? Academic, critical, analytical, comparative, or jovial. Obviously he is comparative because the person is comparing the kind of education that was in his time or her time and the kind of education which is nowadays. So it will be what? A comparative. Alright, question 4th. The attitude of the author can be best described as what? Progressive, reactionary, liberal, tolerant, or critical. So it's what? Reactionary. Because he or she is reacting to the way the education system has changed, and then he or she is comparing today's education system with the education system of their own time. Alright. Next question. How would you describe the author's attitude towards current learning strategies? Is it distant, admiring, ironic, objective, or reviling? So the answer has to be obviously ironical. Alright. Last question. According to the passage, the author's intention is to get us what? Confirms current trends, rethink educational strategies, think about what constitutes communication, reassure parents, and redefine language teaching. So obviously it's what? B, that is rethink educational strategies. And with this we come to the end of this session. So what we did was we actually did 2 passages. Firstly, we read the passage and then we solved the questions, whereas in the second case we first read the question to get a glimpse or an idea of what the passage is going to be about, and then we read the passage, marked all the important points and important lines, and then we solved the questions. Now you people can do in either of the way. whatever suits you, whatever feel comfortable as per you. I would recommend the second one. Why? Because after reading the questions, what happened that you have a fair idea of exactly what the passage is going to be about. If not 100%, then maybe 75%. All right. And then when you are reading the passage, you will pay utmost attention to find the answers there and then, so that you do not have to go back to the question again and actually boggle with your mind that what the answer is going to be. So I feel, according to my own personal experience, that the second option, the way we actually did the second passage, was correct instead of the first one. Well, there is no correct or wrong in this case, but I would feel the second one was a much better approach. So with this, we come to end of our session. All the best and keep learning.